Hello, and thank you for joining me today on The Political Conversationalist. My name is Ben Phipps, and it's Friday. I have my journal, and the thumbnail should have all given away the fact that we're doing another update video on a couple big stories happening in U.S. politics. And I'm kind of excited about this one because normally these are not good stories that we're talking about, but I do have a good story to talk about. And that is Pastor Andrew Brunson was released from Turkey. He was in Turkish custody for over 2 years for supposed espionage, and it took a long time for American authorities to negotiate his release. Of course, there's been no proof of his involvement in espionage, but the Turkish government, when Brunson was jailed something in the realms of 40,000 people around the same time. So very haphazard with who they jailed and who was actually committing espionage. So they were supposed to come to an agreement this past August on getting him released, yet that did not work out for whatever reason. And soonly thereafter, Trump imposed some hefty sanctions on Turkey, which dramatically inflated, so reduced the value of the Turkish lira, which is their currency. And apparently those kind of sort of worked, and he has been released back to the United States safely and soundly. So that's always a good thing. Got another American back on American soil who was being held in custody in a foreign country and did so without military actions. That's definitely a success of the Trump administration. It's definitely a success of U.S.-Turkey relationships. And Turkey really is a big, powerful nation, so maybe we should try to be kind of friendly with them. And that's all the good news I have for today. The second story is pretty bad. There was a man named Jamal Khashoggi. He was a Saudi Arabian reporter and journalist. He disappeared after entering the Saudi Consulate in Istanbul. And here's where things get muddy. Now, what we know for sure is that he entered the Saudi Consulate in Istanbul, which is in Turkey. Now, according to what we know, he was entering to get final paperwork on divorcing his wife, who still lived in Saudi Arabia. He currently lives, or used to live rather, in the United States, where he wrote a very critical article of Saudi Arabian policies, specifically of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, or Salman. I'm going to say Salman, it sounds more Arabic. Anyway, so he was trying to receive final divorce paperwork from them, and he had previously went. They were very nice to him. Everything seemed fine. Said, come back later. Everything seemed fine. He came back later, came back, at a future date, and disappeared. His fiance is, of course, very worried about him. And we don't really know what's happened. But here's what we do know. He was very, very, very critical of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who was the current leader of Saudi Arabia. And he spoke and wrote harshly about him in different news articles. He even had a recurring column that he wrote about him in. And Turkish officials, and this is the part that lends some credence to the conspiracy theory as it stands currently, that the Saudi Arabian government did something about this. Turkish officials say he was tortured and killed by Saudis on the premises of the Saudi Consulate. Allegedly, they have audio and video recordings that show this, but those haven't been released to the public. And something else we do know with relative certainty is that 15 men who were supposedly Saudi agents, and some definitely have some ties to the Crown Prince, entered and exited Istanbul and Turkey specifically in a very strange pattern, as in arriving early that morning before he went, and leaving that later that day. And we even have, apparently there is video, and I don't know if it has been released, but video of them driving away from the consulate. So that's definitely an ongoing story. Saudi officials are apparently investigating to see if it's one of many officers in the Saudi government. It may or may not be. It may be the Saudi government themselves. We just don't know right now. But people are calling for Donald Trump to take a harsh look at U.S. relationships with Saudi Arabia, something I've been calling for a long time. And we're going to see how that plays out over the coming weeks. And our third and final story is less sad and more disappointing. Back in June of 2017, Republican Congressman Greg Gianforte, which I believe he's from Montana, so it's probably Greg Gianforte, assaulted, actually body slammed, according to reports, a reporter. So none of that really gained that much media attention back in June of 2017, but now it has, and the reason it has is Trump is actually having a rally in Montana, and of course he was introduced by Greg Gianforte, and Trump joked about it in his speech. He said, you know, he's a great guy, great congressman. I'm paraphrasing here, of course. He said, and whatever you do, don't wrestle him. You know, anybody that can pull off a body slam, that's my guy. That's how he said that. And the reason this is even more important, and this is pointed out in the CNN article I linked, the Democrats have faced a lot of criticism for their mob mentality, for their attacking alt-right protesters, for their for Antifa, for Black Lives Matter with their violent measures. A lot of those things have been heavily criticized by the conservative right, and I believe rightly so. Yet here we have the opposite side of the fence. We have the Republicans, or more specifically the conservative side of people, responding violently to a liberal person, and it's being, at least by the president himself, pretty much justified. Now, legally speaking, Gianforte did actually plead guilty to misdemeanor assault and did 20 hours of anger counseling, bless his little heart. But he still got elected. He's probably going to get elected again. And it's disappointing. It really is. I think if you believe yourself to be intellectually correct in your ideals, ideologically correct that is, you have to hold yourself to a higher standard than your opponents so that people can tell you're not just as crazy as they are, or as crazy as you want them to believe. Anyway, disappointing world we live in a lot of ways. We'll see how that plays out. That's probably all we're going to hear about that story. But hopefully no one else takes the idea of Gianforte and starts attacking people they don't believe in, or the ideas of Antifa or Black Lives Matter for that matter. Anyway, I appreciate you joining me today. Hope you learned a little something about what's going on in the U.S. and around the world, or around the world that relates to the U.S. And realize it's a big world. Normally on the news we only hear Trump said, Trump said, Trump said, and there's definitely a lot more going on than what Trump said. So hope you learned a little something about what else is going on. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. You can subscribe and you can see all these videos. We also post topical videos. If you have a question, suggestion, comment that you don't want to post in the comments below, maybe something you want to keep private, keep your name off of, maybe something that's just really long and you don't want to bother writing it into a comment box, you could follow the link in my description to my Facebook page. You don't have to like my Facebook page, but you can, and I would appreciate it. And you can email me from there, and that's the best way to ask me any question you want to keep confidential, long question, or maybe just a specific question that doesn't warrant an answer in a video, but maybe you just want a quick answer through email. I'm totally available for that. Thanks for watching.